are these people?
We've talked about the persecution of people supporting Palestine in multiple places, in multiple situations, especially with the protests happening here and Trump deporting people and things like that. So I figured we should...
But this story is more in Europe.
Yes.
Like what's happening in Europe regarding
any
protests in Palestine.
I have this from the Electronic Intifada, David Cronin. Cops in Brussels seize Palestinian activists on the city streets. So, not doing well there. He writes, the arrest of the Palestinian activist Mohammed Khatib in Brussels fills me with fear. It fills me with fear not only because I know and like Mohammed Khatib for some time, I've been worried about the threats right-wing Belgian politicians have been making against him. It fills me with fear because this could be the start of something bigger and far more abhorrent. Khatib was seized by police after he had left a demonstration against Israel's genocidal attacks on Gaza. Think for a moment about what signal that sends out. Cosmopolitan liberal Brussels is a city where the cops can grab people with dissenting views as they walk along the streets. Although Khatib was released early the following morning, we can be sure that the story does not end here. The newly formed Belgian government has made it clear that it wants to ban Saimadoun, the group which Khatib represents. Saimadoun has long been in the crosshairs of the pro-Israel lobby, which falsely depicts the group as threatening the Jews based on their ethnicity or religion. I mean, they literally try to have it deemed a terrorist organization, which is just incredibly ironic. The only evidence adduced by the lobby is declarations of support that Saimadoun has made for Palestinian armed resistance. I do believe specifically the PLF, right? The UN General Assembly has recognized repeatedly that people living under an apartheid system and military occupation have a right to resistance, including armed struggle. We've talked about that before. Upholding that right shouldn't be a controversial matter in Brussels, a city which was placed under military occupation by Germany 85 years ago. In many parts of the city, it is impossible to go for a short stroll without encountering plaques honoring the Nazis' victims. The arrest of Mahmoud Khatib illustrates that these plaques and the messages they convey are being ignored. The Belgian authorities are not siding with Palestinians going through a 21st century Holocaust in Gaza and their supporters around the world. They are siding with Israel, the state carrying out that Holocaust and its network of lobbies. So, who's next? If the Belgian authorities enjoy any success in muzzling Mahmoud Khatib and Saimadoun, then we have to ask, who is next? All Palestine solidarity campaigners are at risk, and Palestine isn't some kind of hermetically sealed issue. The struggle for justice and equality between the River Jordan and the sea cannot be separated from other struggles against oppression, impoverishment, and environmental degradation. In Brussels, protests in support of Palestinian rights have been diverse. Like in many other cities, they have brought together Muslims, Jews, Christians, non-believers, trade unionists, feminists, and LGBTQ activists. If the authorities ramp up the repression of activists for Palestinian rights, then the question must be asked, who's next? Belgium's latest government is nicknamed Arizona, as the colors of the parties in the ruling coalition resemble that state's flag. The connections are emblematic in another way. Arizona is now synonymous with border militarization. Brussels hosts institutions which have made the militarization of the EU's borders a priority to which the political mainstream is now fully committed. Israeli weapons and surveillance technology tested on Palestinians is being used in militarization processes both in Europe and along the U.S.-Mexico border. While Frontex, the EU's border guard agency, is based in Warsaw, the policies it implements are made in Brussels. The agency's real value will be underscored next week, when it will be the most visible EU body at a weapons industry conference in Copenhagen. One of the weapons Frontex uses to track refugees is an Israeli drone. This is an example of Israeli versatility. Tools of occupation and even genocide can be adapted for various purposes. Mahmoud Khatib has every right to live and be politically active in Belgium. The way he has been arrested this week shows how little basic rights are being discarded. It would be nice if Europeans could simply go for a beer or an ice cream and celebrate that we are better than America. The truth is that any such complacency would be foolish. The detention of Mahmoud Khalil, a U.S. green card holder, over his role in New York protests is frightening. Nothing quite as extreme has happened in Europe so far this year. Repression is nonetheless rife. In Germany, citizens of other European countries now face deportation for defending Palestinian rights. Germany regards standing by Israel at all times as a Straßenrecht, a reason of state. And God help anyone who thinks otherwise. Germany's Ursula von der Leyen is the EU's most powerful politician, vow genocide, as Claire Daly would call her, or at least is behaving as such. Despite her dispute with Trump over tariffs, which is bullshit, her agenda bears strong similarities to that of the U.S. president. Trump and his team are gleefully kicking people out of the U.S., sending them to concentration camps in El Salvador. Von der Leyen and her team are determined to kick as many people out of the EU as they can get away with. The list of countries they have deemed as safe for expulsions include Egypt, Morocco, India, and Tunisia. So, in case you needed to write those down. None of these countries can seriously be considered safe for people who challenge their governments. Few places are safe now, and when cops feel they can simply grab people on the streets of Brussels, Europe is anything but safe. Thoughts so far before we head to our next one?
I mean, just the same shit that's happening over here, really. So, I mean, I think it just kind of shows the hold the Israeli lobby have on our politicians everywhere. It's not just exclusive to the U.S. And even this is happening in Belgium, which you would think is, I wouldn't say liberal, but I think generally a lot of people think that Europe is slightly more liberal, depending on the country, than
which it can
the US
be.
is. Which
Just
it can be,
depending on the issue.
Well, in this issue, we can tell it's definitely like the farthest of, not the farthest of the right wing, but definitely more right in terms of dealing with any dissent. For Palestine, which I think is kind of interesting. It just seems to me like the more that people, the world order is trying to crack down on people to maintain, the status with Israel, the more people I think are just over it and just really more willing to dissent. So I think if anything is having more of an opposite effect, instead of trying to have people win to their side in terms of being more pro-Israel, I think is making the case for people to actually kind of look into Israel a lot more and kind of seeing a lot of their colonialist and imperialist practices that they've been implementing since really the turn of the century. So, but yeah, I think it just proves that no one is safe, especially when it comes to the Israeli lobby, and any dissent in terms of you showing any support for Palestine can get you arrested.
Yep. Which is just nuts to me. I mean, they're doing that weird shit across the board. So, but that article mentioned Germany, right? So we'll head over there. No, but specifically, he also at the end mentioned Germany. So we have Alan MacLeod writing in Mint Press about Germany specifically, and the case of Huseyin Dogru, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who's facing prison time in Germany for criticizing Israeli journalists, which, is there such a thing, or are they just propagandists? Find out at 11. So, amid a crackdown on pro-Palestinian voices in Germany, a journalist regularly attacked as a Russian operative is facing up to 3 years in prison for defamation of Israeli-backed journalists. Huseyin Dogru, founder of Red Media, has been charged with defamation for actions relating to a spat with Nicholas Potter, a German state-funded reporter working for the Israeli outlet, the Jerusalem Post. In December, Potter, self-styled counter-extremist expert, published a lengthy expose in the Jerusalem Post claiming that Red Media, Mint Press News, and the Gray Zone were part of a network of far-left outlets promoting extremism and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Worse still, he strongly insinuated that all three were promoted and funded by the governments of Russia, Syria, and Iran. These charges are false, see Mint Press's rebuttal, and are particularly ironic, coming as they do from a journalist who is funded by the German Foreign Office, one who, amid a genocide, moved to Israel to work for an outlet headed by a former IDF spokesperson. Moreover, Potter himself arguably holds extreme views on the subject. Just weeks after attacking us for our journalism, he penned an article titled, "Can Journalists Be Terrorists?", which attempted to justify many of Israel's killing of Palestinian media workers. Both Red and Mint Press immediately highlighted much of this important context, and our content went viral. A sticker about Potter based on Red Media graphic was spotted in Berlin. The sticker took the outlet's criticism of him and plastered the phrase, "the German Hurensohn," the German son of a bitch. Over the top, that sticker is a centerpiece of the prosecution's allegation of a coordinated hate campaign against Potter led by Red Media. Potter claims that he has suffered harassment and threats to his life, and some have tried to link this back to Red Media's graphic. So there's that graphic, right? German journalist as good as genocide propaganda, so good at genocide propaganda, hired in Israel. That's the sticker, right? So, well, that's the graphic. They then made it a sticker and put it up places. So I think that might not be a good idea to do that if we're worried about, you shouldn't put stickers up like that if that's the issue. But the accusations provoked a storm of articles in German media, all supportive of Potter. Many echoed U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken's claims that Red Media is a Russian government-controlled influence operation. Dogru denies these allegations, although he was previously a key part of Redfish, a platform financed by Reply, a German-based outlet partially funded by the Russian state-controlled network RT. After the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Dogru closed Redfish and started his own independent outlet. He insists it has no connection to Russia and is dedicated to making revolutionary and educational content. He also denies having any information or involvement in producing anti-Potter stickers. Potter's support for Israeli policies has certainly drawn the ire of many in the pro-Palestine movement in Germany, yet he is far from alone. The German government has offered its full support to Israel, gone so far as to ban pro-Palestine demonstrations and lock up countless activists, including Jewish people. The phrase "from the river to the sea" has effectively been criminalized, with Berlin announcing that it would deny citizenship to anyone using it. New German citizenship laws require all applicants to sign what is, in effect, a loyalty oath to the State of Israel, declaring that it has a right to exist. Berlin is currently deporting foreign residents for their participation in lawful protests supporting Palestinian rights. Dogru's legal team had advised him that his wife and son could be deported as well. Sound familiar? Commentators have warned that with these actions, Germany is lurching towards the authoritarian right, with the far-right AfD party surging in the polls. A recent survey found they are now the most popular party in Germany. Many inside the country are ringing the alarm bells. For decades, Germany has stuck with Israel and its narratives in the Middle East. Dogru told Mint Press, adding, "Since October 7th, we see that the German government is violently repressing activists to make sure there are no voices in Germany critical of Israel. Activists have paid a high price to make sure they can protest." According to Dogru, this is a test case. Ultimately, the suppression of speech is not about Israel, but an attack on its own society. Germany, in preparing to assert itself as a leading military and political force in NATO and the EU, to do that, it must eliminate resistance, not just abroad, but at home. This isn't driven by historical guilt or solidarity. It's about silencing dissent and disciplining society. By targeting the most marginalized, the German state is disciplining its population, silencing oppression before it grows. The message from the German government is clear, Dogru claims: fall in line or be crushed. Thoughts, Care Bear?
Well, as I said, I think it's having the opposite effect of what they want. Like it's forcing people to kind of realize the stronghold that Israel has on the West, and I think and it always it's affecting the idea of Jewish people not being safe. In this case, yes, I agree, because and I don't want to sound, and it's not fair in this regard, but yeah, people are going to associate what Israel is doing to what Jewish people are doing, which the two, you can't mesh the two, but at the same time, other than like obviously if you're anti-Zionist, and that's really more the issue that I think we're not discussing too much, is the idea it's not so much the faith in of itself is Zionism, which is not a faith. Let's make that clear. Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. You can be Jew and not, and Indy, who we love dearly, is one. That's clearly separate from the religion of it in of itself. Like, and I just kind of, and I think we have to be careful in making that distinction, because I think people are kind of summing up, which I think in a lot of ways is adding to more the victimization of Jewish people might feel, and being like, oh, like these people don't like me because I'm Jewish. No, it's the idea of what you seemingly represent in terms of Zionism. That's what people don't like about you, or the idea of you thinking like out of your suffering that it's okay for you to colonize and terrorize another people group for the sake of land for you, in the matter of you feeling safe. Whereas in the West, I feel like you're Jewish, no offense to anyone, but you're probably among the safest people in the world at this point, for sure. Because, our politicians are bending over backwards to fulfill the need of Jewish people here, whereas Black people have been kind of going at this for centuries, and we do not get the same protection or safety, which honestly kind of pisses me off, but it should be, but speaking for me as a Black man, it should be offered that same care and concern for everybody, regardless of who you are, and not just exclusively because you happen to be Jewish / Zionist.
How about that? It would help if I wasn't muted, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I thought
I'm just tripping. I was just saying it sucks, but like we're gonna see more of this, especially with what are they making now? Autism registries, and you're not allowed to. What's the new thing? You're not allowed to be part of the NHS unless you right to exist stuff, right? Wasn't that a racist thing? Someone in chat will let me know. Old Bobby Kennedy fucking it up for everybody. Fucking dumb bullshit. Anyway, told you so, motherfuckers. By the way, told you so. Just saying. Fuck. But yeah. Ugh. Well, talking about this stuff is most likely why YouTube has demonetized us. So if you would like to support us anyway, you can go to ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork or scan that QR code on your screen. As always, links to donate are in the description below. You can't give monetarily. We get it. It's tough out there. Eggs are expensive. Hit the like and subscribe button. Share the stream. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Are they coming for us next? Most likely, but,
yeah.
Share with us your thoughts. And otherwise, thanks for watching.